My name is Kaline Carter. I'm an artist, and we're in my studio today. I like painting architecture because what I really like is painting pattern, repetition, geometry, and color. I found out architecture early on when I started painting again because I was traveling a lot for my job. So I was going from city to city, and I started amassing thousands of photographs that I was taking of cities and buildings. I guess I always was an artist. It just took me a really long time to find my voice. Growing up, my mom was always so encouraging and took me to the art supply store and bought me lots of art supplies and took me to craft fairs where we came up with lots of ideas together. When I was a teenager, I had a very similar studio in my house. My parents gave me the basement to do whatever I wanted. I had my own business. I had a hand-painted t-shirt business. My dad would help me take all the t-shirts and the tents and the tables and set up at different arts and crafts fairs around town. Well, when I was getting ready to graduate high school, my art teacher at that time suggested that maybe I apply to Parsons School of Design in New York City. And so I did, and that was the only school that I applied to, and I got in. And that was crazy. I got to live in New York City, and I got to go to Parsons, and I got to meet artists and designers from all over the world. It was like a really cool experience. I really couldn't find my style then. I was making all kinds of things. I was painting portraits. I was designing textiles. I was taking classes like color theory and just, making charts of different colors. I struggled a lot. I really didn't fit in. I didn't feel like I knew who I was at that time. I always say I had a bit of a mental break. I really struggled. I struggled with myself, and I dropped out of Parsons after about a year and a half. I really walked away from art. I worked for places like JCPenney. I worked for places like Sam Goody. I was working at Macy's, and this customer came in and said, "Can you help me find a pair of jeans?" He looked at me when I was done ringing him up, and he said, You're in the wrong job. You should be doing something else." That was crazy. But that's true. So I don't know why, but I listened to him and I took that advice. And one of the jobs that I applied for was ridiculous. It was on Craigslist. Are you good at sales? Like that kind of a job, like listing. And it turned out to be a magazine publisher based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and they were hiring for Southwest Art Magazine. And eventually I worked for several magazines for them. I sold Southwest Art Magazine advertising, Collector's Guide, The Artist Magazine, Watercolor Artist, and Pastel Journal. So it turned out to be a really good job for me, and it kind of brought me back into the art world, which is really what I was wanting to do. I just didn't really know what capacity that might be in. And that was just a perfect fit because I had so much customer service and sales experience. And then I was passionate about the arts. So it just kind of brought me back. At first, with the magazine, my job was mainly based here. I really had to be in Santa Fe almost every day. That was kind of the way that they had set me up. Over the years, publishing changed and our team changed a lot. And so people would come and go, and I would end up with a larger territory until eventually I was the only salesperson. So the first territory that I remember taking over was Texas. And that changed my story because the biggest customer in Texas was in Amarillo. I was very intrigued when I took over the Texas territory, because to see that the largest account was in Amarillo, I'm not that far from Amarillo, but it just was kind of amazing to me. Like, who is this person? So I drove out to Amarillo almost right away, and I met Anne Crouch, who was an abstract artist, and she owned this shopping mall. But this particular shopping mall had not been opened. It was kind of vacant for a long time. And so she put an ad in the paper, and she said, if you are an artist and you need a studio space, if you come down to the mall and stand in front of the space that you want, as long as you're willing to pay for your, I think it was electricity and water, you can have the space. And once a month, she had an art walk where it was one of the most amazing events, because it was just a big event for the community. She also had the Amarillo Art Institute in that mall. Her own gallery and her own studio were all in that space. But there were dozens and dozens of artists creating all kinds of work, all ages, all different levels, all mediums. And it was just a really cool place to be. So I got to know her really well. And she would always say, Kaline, are you an artist? And I always said no. I was like, I don't know why you think that. I'm not an artist. Like, I work for the magazine, but I'm not an artist. The day after the art walk, which was Saturday morning, she loved to set up her easel just in the hallway at the mall. And it was very quiet and had great light, and she could paint. And she said to me, why don't you come by and we'll talk about, advertising while I'm painting. And I thought, how fun is that? Like, I get to hang out with Anne. And one time I showed up to meet her, and she had a second easel set up. And I was like, Anne, I'm not a painter. I'm not an artist. And she said, well, I know, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to squeeze these colors of paint onto the canvas from the tube. She handed me a palette knife, and she said, you're not painting. Just move the colors around while we're talking. And I did. And I did that for several years, every time that I would meet with her. And those paintings were awful. They were awful paintings, but I would leave them. I would leave my painting in her studio to dry. And then the next time that I came to see her, I would paint another one, but I would take that painting home. And I did that for several years, several times a year that I would go see her. She died very unexpectedly. I think she had the flu. But then a good friend of ours called me beginning of January 2017. She had passed. And I couldn't even go to her funeral because I was on my way to the LA art show for my job for the magazine. And I remember thinking, what am I going to do? Like, I was on the plane on the way to LA, and I thought, what am I going to do? Like, that was the only artwork that I had created in a very long time. So I kind of thought, I owe this to her. So I remember in LA, I stopped and I bought myself a sketchbook because I had been going to the LA Art Show for years, every year. And I'm always inspired by all the work that I saw there, which was very different for me because I was really based in a very sort of Western art world, you know? So I was working with a lot of Southwest artists and galleries. But walking around the LA Art Show, I got up close to a lot of paintings, to a lot of work, talked to a lot of artists there, and just started thinking how I wanted to experiment with different mediums. I remember while I was sitting at the LA Art Show, passing out Southwest Art Magazine, I remember that I was just ordering online all of the supplies I would need to do all of these different projects and ideas that I had thought of. I remember getting home and there were just boxes and boxes of art supplies. I was so excited that I had made this choice, that I could, you know, afford all of those supplies, and I just spent my weekends from that point forward just experimenting with all different kinds of materials. I was doing everything from watercolor and gouache and collage. Right around that same time, I had seen Agnes Martin's work, and I'd always been really attracted to pattern repetition, grid work, and so I was really drawn to her work. And so I decided to read her biography, and I realized that we had a lot in common. We both tried to make it in New York City twice. We both ended up in the same New York City hospital due to mental breaks. We both came to New Mexico to escape. And honestly, I think Agnes really found her calling, her true style much later in life. And I think, you know, obviously that's what happened to me. So I first started painting all these very intricate grids on paper. But they were taking so long. They would take weeks and weeks for me to complete. And I was getting frustrated making them, you know? I wanted to do something that would be faster, that would be more efficient, and I could be more prolific. So I started researching all of these different hard edge painting techniques. That's when I really started finding other artists like Carmen Herrera and Ellsworth Kelly, Bridget Riley, and I was really attracted to that kind of work. So I started experimenting with acrylic paint and tape. And the first thing that I painted using that process was a series of abstracted Los Angeles architecture. I knew right away that that was my process, that that was how I was going to paint moving forward. I felt like I finally found my calling. I didn't know exactly what I was going to paint once I found that. Even after painting Los Angeles architecture, I then painted New York, Jackson, Wyoming. I remember I was thinking about Palm Springs quite a bit. I was traveling there for work at least once a year, but really trying to think of how I could do that in sort of a pared down, edited composition. And the first Palm Springs painting was very simple. Very, very simple. I thought, what are the colors that say Palm Springs? So that's where I started. I started with those colors, like that blue sky, that desert blue sky, and there's something about orange in Palm Springs. So my first painting was just an orange square with a black cantilever roof and a blue sky and a green tree. Very simple, and I actually was very unsure of it. I thought it might be too simple. And so I posted it on Instagram. I just thought, well, let me just post this and see, you know, what people think. And It ended up being one of my highest engaged posts, and a gallery in Dallas contacted me and asked me to be a part of a show that they were doing. It was a group show. I don't remember how many paintings I sent, but they were all very small, and he called me a day or two after the show opened, and he was like, so everything's sold and we need more. So I just kept painting more and more, and I did very well with that gallery for a couple of years. Well, I had shown my work at a gallery in Key West for a group show, and she had reached out to me and said, maybe you should try painting Key West houses. And I thought, what a great opportunity. Maybe I should consider that. And so she sent me a few photos, and so I tried it. I sent them to Key West, and they sold. But yeah, I think that kind of opened up the door to my, I opened up my mind, really. Wow, there's architecture everywhere, and I could probably apply this same process to all of it. Now, some architecture is definitely more intricate and more detailed, more difficult using my process. But I think as time has gone on, I've realized that I could probably apply this process to almost any architecture. And the more and more I practice, the easier it becomes. In the beginning, when I really started painting and I really started showing my work again, it was really important for me to not leverage the connections that I had made in my job and my career working for the magazines, because I wanted to make sure that the work could stand on its own. So I didn't show my work in New Mexico for a long time. But it was so obvious that I should be painting New Mexican architecture, but I just had never done that. And it seemed really far off for me because, New Mexican architecture is it's just more organic and a little bit more curvy and wavy and rounded. And I knew that if I was going to show New Mexico architecture in Santa Fe, that it needed to be correct. Just because I think New Mexico is so important to me, I really wanted to make sure that I was honoring the architecture, that I was painting it with integrity. And so I spent a long time fleshing it out. I did so many paintings on paper that I never showed anyone for probably a year and a half. Now it's I can't even imagine what else I would be doing. I wish, I hate saying that. I don't like saying that I wish I had been doing this all along, because I just always say I don't regret my story, that I'm so happy where I ended up and feel like I belong here doing what I'm doing. I think if somebody came to me and said, I was once an artist and I haven't created any art in many years now, what should I do? I would say we all deserve having a creative outlet. So if it's just sketching on a piece of paper, if it's just writing down ideas, if it's just taking photos with your phone and keeping photo albums of things that you might do someday, don't have to show anybody what you're making. You can just do it for yourself. And that's what I did for a long time. I didn't show anybody anything that I was making. It wasn't about that. It was just about experimenting and enjoying it, really having a good time and feeling like you could, feeling free to do it.